مرحبا بالجميع. Hi everyone, this is Muizzuddin Oladimeji once again, and Alhamdulillah, we've been able to conclude all the lessons around the letters of Arabic alphabet. But then there's one more thing that's very crucial in Arabic language, which is the different forms of Arabic letters. English language and Arabic language are quite dissimilar in this aspect because in English, you can actually learn the capital letters and the small letters, and you're good to go. For instance, everything you're seeing on the screen right now is written in English, so you can easily say, "Oh, this is letter N, letter O, letter W," like that. But in Arabic language, it's quite different because in Arabic, the letters get to enter and connect with other letters in a particular word. You won't have, so for instance, the like of it, let's say in English language, where you could have fluent like this. In cursive handwriting, in cursive calligraphy, you could have something like this. You understand? So it's now blended together, and you're having one letter entering into the other letter, and it looks quite confusing that way. That's the way Arabic is written generally, because in Arabic language there is no capital letter or small letter. What you need to learn is, how does this letter look when it's standing alone? How does it look when it's at the beginning of a word? How does it look when it's in the middle of a word? And how does it look when it's at the end of a word? Okay, so generally speaking, a letter, an Arabic letter could either be in an isolated form or in a connected form. Okay, it could either be in an isolated form or in a connected form, either of these two. If it's in an isolated form, then you're good to go, which is what we've learned so far. That is, it is standing alone. That's where you can have ba looking like this, ta looking like this. All those ones were learned earlier in the prior videos. Those are isolated forms of those letters. Okay, that is when it's standing alone. But then it could also appear in a way that it is in a connected form, which is what you probably you most likely come across in the Quran. If you open up the Quran, you see that a lot of these letters are not looking like what you've learned in the previous videos. That's because they are now in a connected form, one letter entering into the other. Then you still have to learn how to identify each one. So when they are in a connected form, they could take any of these three forms, which are either initial form or medial form or final form. Initial form when it appears at the beginning of a word, medial form when it appears in the middle of a word, while the final form when it appears at the end of a word. So let's take it again. I said an Arabic letter generally could have two forms. Broadly speaking, we could have either isolated form, which means standing alone, which is what we've learned so far, or it could have the connected form. If it's in a connected form, that means it's alongside, it's written together with some other letters in a particular word. And to now know how it looks, we have to understand its position, its placement within the word. Is it at the beginning of a word? If it's at the beginning of that word, then we have to know its initial form. If it's in the middle of a word, we have to know its medial form. And if it's at the end of a word, then we have to know the final form. All right, so now let's take this one. So Alif, we have the letters here. We have the isolated form when they're standing alone, which is what we've learned before now. The initial form when it's at the beginning of a word, when they're in the middle of a word, and when they're at the end of a word. Now for Alif, when it's standing alone and when it's at the beginning of a word, it's exactly the same thing. Alif, which means it doesn't join with the word next to it. You know, Arabic is written from right to left, don't forget. So the word next to it will be by this left hand side like this. It doesn't join with it. So it just stands alone. But in this case, apologies. So in the middle of a word now, so it means, yeah, it doesn't join with the word with the letter next to it because it's the one starting the word in this case. But in the medial form, which means it's appearing in the middle of a word. When it's appearing in the middle of a word, you see it's connected to the letter before it. So we can conclude that alif can join or can connect with the letter before it, but it doesn't connect with the letter after it. Do you understand that? So if it will be connected with the letter after it, then it has to connect in the initial form, but it doesn't connect in the initial form, it just stands alone. Then in the medial form, it connects with the letter before it. Then in final form, obviously, it's the last letter, so it still connects with the letter before it, just like in the medial form. So when you see something like this at the end of a word or in the middle of a word, then that is alif. I hope that's clear. Then ba. This video might be quite long. Let's see how it goes. Then ba. For ba, when ba is standing alone, it is looking like this. When it's at the beginning of a word, you see just that curvy part, that beginning curvy part, and a dot underneath, but you won't see this part because now it's trying to join with another letter, so it has to sacrifice this ending part of it. Get so that is ba. Then when it's at the middle of a word, it has to connect with both letters surrounding it, the letter before it and the letter after it. That which is what we have here. It's connecting to something here, connecting to something here, which means what you are essentially looking for in ba is this shape with a dot underneath. Then for medial form and for the final form, it takes on its shape back, but then it's still connected to the letter before it. Okay, so we can say that unlike alif, which doesn't connect to the letter after it, ba connects to on both sides. Same thing with star, it connects on both sides. Same thing with tha. However, they take on their letters, their number of dots. So ta, 2 dots all through, tha, 3 dots all through. But one unique thing about ta again is that when it's having the final form, it's either having this normal shape or it takes on this shape. But what you're still looking for in this case is double dots. Okay, so 2 dots. And this particular shape for ta only appears at the final form. You won't see it in the middle when it's appearing in the middle of the word or at the initial form. So same thing with tha, we have tha taking on the shape, but it doesn't have this rounded one. Then jim. Jim is not difficult to identify. It's just the head, that's greater than sign. Just know the greater than sign. Greater than sign. That is what you have to learn about jim, ha, and kha, and then take note of their dots. So jim has its dots below, ha no dots, kha above. So when they are at the beginning of a word and in medial form, they connect on both sides with that greater than shape and their dots. But when they appear at the end of a word, they take on their original shape. Then for dal, nothing when it's isolated, obviously. When it's at the beginning of a word, it's still the same shape. Same thing with dal, same thing with ra, same thing with zai. But all of these four, they connect with the word with the letter before them. They do not connect with the letter after them. So that's why in the medial form you see that they're only connecting with the letter before them, not with the one after them. So since they can connect with the letter before them, definitely they can still connect with the letter before them at the final form here. So we have the same thing in the case of sin, shin, sword, and dot. They have the same attitude towards the surrounding letters. When they are in the initial form, they can connect with the letter before them, the letter after them. You have just the head showing. Okay, when they're in the middle of the word, they connect on both ends. Then when they are at the end of the word, they take on their original shape again. And you have to take note of the number of dots. So that's about alif to dot. So for the other letters, we have to, zo, ain, goin, fa, kof, kaf, lam, mim, nun, waw, ha, and ya. For to, zo, and for to and zo, I don't think you have any problem there. They connect on both ends, but they still have their shape. For ain and gain, you have to take careful look at them, because when they are at the beginning of a word, they have just the head retained. The tail is cut off. So we have ain and gain, gain having its dot above it. But then when they are in the middle of a word, you see that it's completely different. So it's looking like a small, how do I put it now? So looking like a deep dot on it. So as if you are tying something and you've tied it very tightly. So there is no space in between. That's what you need to take note of. In this eye now, there's no space in between this head. So it's just well darkened. Okay. Same thing with going with the dots. So you see that going now, you won't mistake it with fa, because in the case of fa, you have that rounded head with one dot. You have that one rounded head with one dot again, and in the medial form. But then the rounded head has a space in it, unlike the going. So ain and gain, what is peculiar about them when they're in the middle of a word is the fact that the head is well darkened and no space in between. Same thing in the final form, they have that same head, but then they get back their shape, their tail. Okay, so far not so difficult, just the round shape and the dot above it. Cough, the same shape with two dots above it. But then calf has a different shape as well. When it's standing alone, you know the shape, but when it's at the beginning of a word, it changes quite completely, because you have this shape. Yes, so the shape changes. For calf, you have this at the beginning of a word. When it's in the middle of a word, that same shape, but then it can connect on both ends. So you have this. This is telling you it's connecting here, it's connecting there. When when it's at the final form, it retains its original shape. Then lam. Now, lam and alif should not be mistaken, because when lam is at the beginning of a word, you see lam looking like this, connecting to the letter after it. But in the case of alif, alif does not connect with the letter after it. It can only connect with the letter before it, which means you will not see alif like this connecting with something next to it. So if you have any letter looking like this connecting with something after it, it is definitely a lam. In the case of alif, if it's in the initial form, it's just standing alone. If it's in the medial form for alif, since it can connect with something before it, then you have alif looking like this, connecting with something before it. It will not connect with what is after it. But in the case of lam, since it can connect on both ends, in the medial form, you have lam looking like this, connecting on both ends. Then at the end of the word, alif still takes, is still having the same attitude of connecting to the letter before it. So at the end of the word, in the final form, alif takes that shape like this, connecting to the letter before it. But in the case of lam, it retains its original shape. All right, for meme, you have meme when it's standing alone, like this. When it's at the beginning of a word, just that rounded head connecting to the letter before after it, because meme can actually connect on both ends, and you have to take note of how the meme looks in the middle of the word, because the lines, like the lines that are connecting the meme to the letters surrounding it, are also are like originally connected to the shape of the meme. So what I mean is, you have this. Okay, so you have this. So it's quite on the same line. That is meme, having a connection with the letter before it and the letter after it. Then meme, at the end of a word, it takes on something close to its original shape. Known is just like a bar and with an opposite placement of the dots. And wow, not difficult, the same shape. How, another shape as well. So for how, when it's standing alone, you can have it like this. When it's in the initial form, you have it like this. When it's in the medial form, you have, in the initial form, we have this. We have this. So it's more like we have two sides of it, one side and another side. So in the medial form, it's split up. Okay. So in the medial form, you have it connecting like this. That is how. Then in the final form, you have something like this. So this final form, sometimes tar takes on this kind of shape, but remember, when tar takes this shape, it has two dots above it, unlike ha. Ha would not have any dots on it. Then yeah is the final one here. So yeah, what you have to look out for is two dots under the letter. In the, let me see, do we have any